I'm Dr. Jordin Wiggins, and this is the Pleasure Principles podcast. Join me on this journey where sex, science, and sensuality meet. Let's change the conversation around sex and pleasure together. Welcome, James Patrick, to the Pleasure Principles podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. I love our conversations. So James is, I cannot even begin to tell you, because I've worked with a fair amount of photographers in my life. One of the best photographers the best male photographer, hands down, I've ever worked with. Genius, made me feel very comfortable. And actually, did I even tell you this?
What?
That I felt like at ease when you were photographing me. Like there's you and one other photographer that I work with, Vicky, that I just feel that comfortable in front of the camera. And it was extra special with you because one, you're a man, and sometimes I didn't have all of my clothes on. So to feel comfortable is amazing. And also because there was this other side of me. Like when I look at your photographs, I was like, that's me. Which was really amazing. So leads us right into what I want to talk about today.
Well, just to jump off that though, should it ever be different for something as vulnerable and as not literally exposing, but figuratively exposing as being on camera, like whether it's a still photograph like we were doing, or being on video and you see that red light turn on, you feel that lens sees more than is actually there. You think it sees into you. And if the individual or individuals you're not working with are not creating an environment for you to feel safe and comfortable, it's going to show, and you're not going to like the end results. So, so much of the work that an artist has to do is not just to take photos. That's why I say I don't take photos, I make images. Because taking a photo, anyone can take a photo. You whip out your iPhone, take a photo, and sometimes they look good and sometimes not. To make an image means you construct and you build and you create and you co-create with your subject. So, working with people, I think is crucially important in the work that I do, much like the work that you do, because if that's not there, you're just going to see a bunch of deer in headlights.
It's interesting. I was exactly thinking that there's a parallel with my work as well, because when we're getting into the intimate, vulnerable parts of people's lives and seeing into them, that's what intimacy is. Who is helping them along that path really makes a difference. So if it's photographer, intimacy coach, and there's a lot of people out there, and I have clients that'll come and tell me stories after, or they'll be so skeptical, because I think the ideal is that, yes, client first, that should be the standard. But is it in your industry?
No, it's not. Well, okay, so to be clear, like my industry, like we have to narrow that focus a little bit, because if you look at photography as a whole, there's so many genres and subgenres that don't even involve people on the other end of that camera. You have a food and beverage photographer, you have an architectural photographer, you have a general commercial photographer. It's when you get into this portrait photography, fashion photography, with really trendy boudoir photography right now, content creation photography. When you get into that, and when you have someone at the other end of that image, now we're creating what needs to be a very mutually beneficial and trustworthy relationship. And if you are not, one, getting into the industry for the right reasons, it's going to be really hard to do that. And two, if you're not creating the work with the right intentions, it's going to be very clear in the final images. And I think because photography has become so ubiquitous and easy to learn, and affordable. Cameras are not
Mm.
expensive. They're not prohibitive. It is not unreasonable for someone to buy working entry-level gear and call themselves a professional and enter into the marketplace and offer services. So because the barrier of entry has dropped so much, it's allowed a lot of people who might not have been in the industry before. And I don't want to position myself in this kind of elitist role, because I want people to enter into the industry. I want new visions. I want new eyes. I want new creations, because I love the celebration of that artwork. But I definitely want people doing it for the right reasons.
And feeling safe. With my industry, it's the same thing. The barrier of entry can be very low.
Hmm.
People without education, people that
Hmm.
maybe had low libido. Not that education, again, is the be all and end all of anything, but people that maybe had low libido themselves or fixed something for themselves and think they've cracked this holy grail. So they go and start teaching methodologies without education to screen for trauma or screen for,
Hmm.
is there something hormonally going on here, or to be able to know to refer to the right people.
I've
Or
seen that. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interject.
go tell me.
I've seen that so much within the coaching space, and I'll zoom out and include all the coaching space, is the ignorance of individuals' past trauma and the exploitation of past trauma, and even shining light onto past. I was at this event, and the speaker on stage is trying to get all the attendees in the audience to share their past traumas without ever creating a safe environment, without really giving a proper place of understanding why they're sharing these traumas. And they're sharing these traumas in front of strangers for another reason. So it increases the amount of fear and resistance we're feeling. And has the strong potential of pushing people further into their traumas. And this is what happens when you have someone who, education aside, but does not have the professional experience to do something, and they can create significantly more harm than good. And I think that's what I think you're talking about, which is when you have individuals like that, it's important that professionals distinguish why you do things a certain way, why you have a certain approach, why you, and before you didn't have to this, but now you do. And now this is what separates you, is you clearly edify and discuss. This is my approach. These are my reasons for how I'm doing this, to create that safe environment, to ensure that you are protected when you enter into a very vulnerable space with me. And I think that's what sets you and your work apart.
And you and yours, because I felt extremely safe, the photography side, and even with you and the business coaching and the other stuff that you do, it's all very transparent and
Mhm.
clear what you're trying to accomplish. Did you say boudoir photography was trending?
Yeah,
Huh, good to know. In my
it's,
mind, it's always been trending. So
oh, is that just because of personal interest in it, or?
because of personal interest, because it's something that I encourage my clients to do when it's
Mhm.
aligned and feels good for them.
Yeah.
Because I think having that experience of same thing, like looking at the photos that you took of me and going, wow, like this is amazing. So to have
Mhm.
themselves seen in that light
Yeah.
is, you know, and again, at the right time when we've dealt with the traumas and all that stuff, kind of as like a liberation or a reclamation thing.
I think it's branding. And this is one of those, like in my day, when I was early in my career, that was not an expression that was used. It was called glamour, or even more professionally, it was called beauty. We shoot beauty
Mhm.
imagery. And beauty would cover a wide spectrum of everything from shooting ads for Revlon, where you have the high key lighting, the butterfly lighting with the stark red lips, that contrast from the soft light skin tones to create that separation of color, to what you would see in magazines like Playboy or Maxim or FHM, things like that. Beauty kind of covered all of that. And all of a sudden, within the last handful of years, this subgenre of boudoir, which is more lower key lighting, so a little bit dimmer, often using natural light behind the subject, which creates a silhouette more than casting light in front of the subject or overlighting the subject, often shooting at extraordinarily shallow depths of field. For anyone that knows photography, meaning one part of the image is in focus and the rest of the image drastically falls out of focus very quickly. It's become very stylized in the last handful of years. And I've seen more photographers claiming that they should not that the claiming is a bad thing, but just identifying as a
That's
boudoir
their,
photographer.
stake in the ground.
Than ever before. And I've always found the word to be confusing because it's one of those things, like, it sounds really fancy and perhaps it sounds fancier than it might be, and maybe that's been always my confusion with it. Is I'd feel like I was misleading if I ever claimed I was a boudoir photographer. People would look at my work, they're like, no way, he's not. He can't shoot boudoir. I feel like my lighting is too commercial and too high key, and too, my colors are too saturated. And people would look at it, they're like, no, this is commercial work at best.
I love listening to you talk about your work. It's fascinating, because I understand none of it, but I also want to lean in because, like, looking at what you do and how you can take some lights and stuff and turn it into what you turn it into just is mind-blowing to me. Maxim, Playboy, you brought up. Mm-hmm. This is big, so go with it wherever. Using women's bodies, photographing women, sex to sell. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
This has been on my mind, as you know, for over a year now, and I've done a series of episodes on my podcast kind of dissecting the economics of the sex industry. And one of the interesting observations I've had is there was not a huge objection to the selling of sex or the use of women and the sexualization of women to move products and services. So, like, think of like those Carl's Jr.'s ads or Hardee's ads if you're, east of the Mississippi, that would have Kate Upton in a skimpy outfit eating a burger for no reason at all other than this will get someone to notice it. Or when you would go to a bookstore and you'd look at the magazine rack, it was filled with this category of men's interest magazines. And it seemed acceptable, provided it was a male earning the revenue, that it was a man in control of the profits. Think of there was I call it like a Hugh Hefner complex, this patriarchal figure of wealth and status and power and desirability, despite being this kind of decrepit, old, diseased individual. Total random sidebar. My grandmother graduated high school with Hugh Hefner. Yes. Wow. So at her like 50-year reunion, which she went to in Chicago, which is where he's from, original Playboy Mansion was in Chicago, he signed her yearbook? Reunion book. Yeah, her reunion book. Nice. So which I have. I have it now. Not sure what to do with it. It's like, oh, I have the autograph of this terrible sexual deviant, but that's great. So we celebrated that as a society. We celebrated him as this figure that was comfortable profiting from the sexualization of women. Now let's contrast that, where in the last 3 years, we've had this explosion of user-generated content via OnlyFans, Patreon, where the paradigm has shifted. And now all of a sudden you have the person in the image or the person in the video
making their own money.
Usually a female making their own money. They are the ones profiting. They do not have to look at like the adult industry in general. Historically, you'd have to sign on to an agency, which would dictate what you shot, when you shot, how often you shot, and how much money you could earn from what you shot. You had no rights to your image, to your brand, to your identity. Everything was controlled by someone else, often being owned by a man. Now, you as the end user can control all of it. You can control what you do and what you will not do. When you do it, when you don't do it, how often, how much you want to charge for it. And you can stop it at any time. You can delete it at any time. You have full control and agency over it. And that raised a lot of angry conservative views, saying that
Go figure.
this was the deviant behavior. And
Of the women, of the witches. Yeah.
It vilified these creators for doing what they would have been doing historically for someone else, in which case that's a blind eye turned to. We didn't talk about it, but we didn't blast it all over the news. Look what this person's doing. How dare she? So I find that contrast very disappointing.
Yeah, and OnlyFans for sex workers and everything during COVID, it completely changed their lives. And it allowed women to make money on their terms and possibly not even be put in certain riskier situations. So, yeah, and then all of a sudden, now it's bad.
Now, and now we want to regulate it.
Yeah. So that we can put the power back in the man's hands to make the money.
It was so unfortunate, not as a consumer, but it was so unfortunate as a human being when they were trying to input regulations and controls on the platform that would not just limit, but altogether handicap the income potential of the user creators. And there was a bunch of kind of miscellaneous rumors of the reasons of, oh, credit card companies don't like this or whatever it is. And it's like
bullshit.
We kind of know that you just don't want these users having this much control of their brand, of their image, of what they can profit without someone's permission or someone's approval. And it was a relief to see that rolled back temporarily. We'll see.
I'm interested to see what happens as well. What are your thoughts on this? One is memorable to me because it was a doctor. I can't remember how many years ago, but the hashtag #MedBikini blew up because there was a physician in her bikini. I believe she was holding alcohol on a beach on a vacation. And initially, someone or multiple people had torn into her saying, not professional, you're a doctor, what are you doing? And the backlash was hashtag #MedBikini, and doctors from all over the world were posting pictures of themselves in their white coats at work and also in bikinis. And for women, for myself, I've always wrestled with this in my career, feeling like I had to pick one or the other, that I could be a doctor or a mother, a doctor or a model, but you can't have it all, was sort of the messaging, or pick, right? Like be one. Do you, and then to have the privilege to work with you and feel like it's all okay because it's tastefully done, and like your magazine Icon Fit, we're going to be dropping the links to all of this in the show notes, to be a part of something that is tastefully done and has morals and a purpose, and it feels good and it feels right. But it took me years of hiding to even feel comfortable doing that. Even when I was in med school and I modeled, I didn't do it under my name because I didn't want people to Google me and then that come up and then choose not to work with me. Like that's how deeply it permeated that fear. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you see other women wrestling with that you work with? Like what do you think?
First, let's remove the label of tastefully done, because even if it were not tastefully done subjective to begin with. There are going to be individuals who will look at what we created and they will not approve. And that's okay. All right. But even if it were not tastefully done, even if it were explicit and raunchy and all the adjectives, does not matter because that was a choice that you made.
Right.
You made that decision. And what we are still dealing with is there's this old guard that is basically controlling what is acceptable. And that has made it so incredibly difficult, even though you have absolute agency to make these decisions. You have that ability to choose. There's no one physically going to stop you from going and doing that photo shoot or for appearing in this magazine. You do not have control over how people respond to it, and that becomes the fear. That becomes the concern, is how are individuals going to respond to this? And the real question is, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you if some are going to celebrate this and some are going to demonize this? And can this impact you in any way other than emotionally? Because emotionally, a lot of us can wade through that. Okay, yes, I might get some backlash, but let's say you own your own business and your clientele would never be turned off by this. Okay, I might get some heat from some conservative family members. I might get some naysayers online, but ultimately this reinforces what I want to do. Okay. And I could wade through those emotions. It gets more complex when, let's just say, you're finishing med school and you're looking for residency, and they're going to be looking at your social media accounts. And that might determine if you get accepted to work at a certain facility or and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we still allow this, I'll just call it this old guard, this historic way of looking at things, of trying to be sheltered from whatever it is that makes us uncomfortable. And it's interestingly convenient that you'll have so many people who would attack this doctor, who, once again, how does this concern anyone? Who gives a shit if she posed in a swimsuit?
Yeah.
How does this impact anyone's lives? But yet, not to play party lines, but these same individuals will celebrate a former first lady for posing nude and brag about how she's the hottest first lady we've ever had. So why is
good
it?
parallel, yeah.
Why is that okay? Why is that something you'll celebrate? But someone who's on vacation, and once again, even if she wasn't on vacation, let's just say she posted nude, like, who gives a shit? How does this impact you? Who are you, listener? Who gave you the moral code to judge this person? It's really disappointing when I see things like this happen.
And I'm glad you brought it to choice, because when I think about it and I take it back to the med school days, they used the McMaster University, one of the really good med schools in our province. They used a photo of a guy that they'd accepted into the program, like he was an Abercrombie model or something, and it was like, oh, look, see, like, we accept all kinds of people or whatever. So
beautiful white men.
Yes. So that was cool, but I still felt the fear of hiding, like that I needed to hide that. And it was, total fear of acceptance in a very patriarchal world. And now, go ahead.
Oh, I apologize. I was just going to say, you'd have to ask how the narrative would have been different if that were a doctor who was a male who's in amazing shape. I can almost guarantee he would be celebrated for the time and the energy and the care he took to ensuring his healthy life.
Yeah. Yeah, with a woman, it's look at, she's a slut, and with them, oh, he saves lives and he's also healthy.
Let's have him on Good Morning America.
Yeah, exactly. And he might have saved an animal too on the beach while he was at it. So, and today it was the choice. It was the choice of two things: to work with you and trust that and feel safe, and the choice of Yeah, not everyone will agree with this, but I'm comfortable enough in my own skin and oddly not even fearful of that at all until we were talking about this conversation. And then it's like, oh, old Jordin applying to med school, Jordin would be scared of all of this. But I think choice is for sure was the key component there.
I think ultimately there's going to be pros and cons with any decision. So you have to make the decision in what's best for you individually. Was applying to speak at this one conference, and I had this insider who was they didn't work for the company, but they often spoke at this event, and they were my little spy that was getting me all the intel. And as I was getting the intel to submit my application, she says, I got to tell you, it's probably not worth your time to speak at this event. I'm just like, why is that? I mean, this is where I want to speak. This is within my vision. This is within my goal set. She said, well, it's a very conservative company, and once they see your Instagram, they're probably just going to turn you down. And that was disheartening. That was disappointing. And what I realized was then they are probably not the company I should be working with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's for you, not being able to please everyone. Although the women listening to this podcast, we incessantly try make everybody happy, which is such a losing game. What else did I want to cover? Anything you want to say?
Jumping off of what you just said, I feel like if that's the posture and we're always shaving off what defines us, I'll call it our edges, because we're afraid this might offend this group over here, or this might offend this subset over here. What we're ultimately doing is we're erasing what actually defines us. And once we erase that, there's nothing to notice. It's too easy to be looked over because you've erased, you've eradicated, you've shaved off anything that has contrast, anything that defines you. And that's the risk we run when we shave off these edges, is ultimately in this fast-paced world with short attention spans, no one will ever notice us. And that I think is that would be terrible for someone who's really trying to do something that would need to be seen.
And we do it in relationship. Like I think one of the central places where we would try and shave off or soften is in intimate relationship, when we're trying to be accepted and trying to be accepted at our most vulnerable. It's so interesting how it even deciding to go and have your picture taken, like you think of all these things and, oh yeah, will someone think something weird, or that it's too much or too far, or she's a doctor, why is she doing that? Like, yeah, why soften the edge? Why not just trust that who's my people will be there and support me and cheer for me?
I think it requires having a vision of what it is you actually want, and then just doing that thing. Because if you're not spending the time to figure out what it is you want, it's going to be really hard to make these decisions. If you can't see an end goal in mind, you don't know if this is the right choice. You don't know if this gets you closer to that end goal or leads you off the path. So setting that first, I think, is important. I think a lot of us don't invest the time to do that. We might think vaguely like, oh, I can see myself in a few years, and we'll come up with a few little bullet points, but we don't actually put the emotion to extrapolate that and to really define what that narrative is and feels like. Because when we do that, we really then start to act with intention, and we know that, yes, I'm going to do whatever this thing is, and yeah, this may upset someone, but this is the thing that I believe is going to get me closer to the goal. And it doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes, and it doesn't mean that there will not be missteps or things that didn't work, but at least you're doing things in a full intention of moving in a direction that you want to go to.
We talk about that in my world as desire and leading with desire, so that a lot of times we have goals and, oh, I want to gross X this quarter or whatever the case may be. And it's like there's a deadness about it. But a desire, on the other hand, is alive. It's, I choose to do my work and be seen because of the women and the partnerships that I know I can help. And
Mhm.
that always outweighs the, little fear-based voice and I find there's less missteps or things that are hard or don't work when you lead from there. So, for example, recently I got off course with like everything was going great, business life, that kind of thing was I felt fulfilled, happy. I started adding like, oh, well, we could be selling this many more programs if we do ads and like all this stuff when my desire was to slow down and write a book.
Mhm.
But giving myself the space and everything, then I started to fill it with crap that wasn't aligned. It was a goal. It was like, okay, well, if we put out X and do all this stuff, then we'll make Y and like from just like a not aligned place. And everything for the last month since I had that idea, started working with an agency that again is not aligned. It's about numbers and all this stuff. And I'm like, but you don't understand. Like, I'm speaking to women about a really vulnerable topic, like Google spitting out keywords and that, like, in an algorithm. Like, and maybe that's me and my block, and I'm just not aware, but it doesn't feel aligned. It doesn't feel
Mhm.
alive for me. So I scrapped it.
I was at this mastermind retreat a number of years ago, and which, by the way, do you run a mastermind?
I don't like to call it a mastermind.
Okay, good. Because I have a bone to pick with what masterminds have become and what happened at this mastermind. Let's just say you have 25, 26 quote unquote successful entrepreneurs. And the reason I say quote unquote is a lot of them weren't. They just appeared that way on social media.
Mm.
You know, I know for a fact one of them had to move back in to her parents' basement because her company was failing, and to make ends meet and to build up enough revenue so that she can move out of her parents' house, she launched a mastermind to teach others how to launch successful businesses. And I'm just thinking, man, whoever's investing in that is investing in someone who doesn't know how, like, who can't do it themselves, but yet they can make money teaching it. So at the end of this 6 month mastermind, we all have to sit around in a circle and we have to brag about what we've done in the last 6 months. And I tend to get a little disassociated in settings like that. So my brain is off in la la land. So I definitely did not go first. And I'm watching one entrepreneur after another unapologetically brag about sales. And not that sales is something to be ashamed of. To be clear, I'm very proud of the sales I make. I feel pride when I earn revenue. I'm happy about that. I do not think success should be resented at all. I never want my success to be resented. But the way of which it was communicated was so inhuman and so cold and so callous that these were numbers, these were figures. I made this many sales. I sold out this many things. I upsold this many people on this other thing that it's basically the same thing. And at some point, this comes around to me, and I'm supposed to brag about this. And I had a good year. I sold out my conference. My mastermind that I was running at the time was full. My coaching roster was completely filled up. My photo business was doing great. But I didn't want to share any of it. It felt like I was being asked to use all these people who chose to invest in me. So all I said was that anyone who's chosen to invest in me, we need to remember that that's an actual person. And that's a person with a need. That's a person with a want. That's a person who made a decision when they could have invested in someone else or not invested at all. We took their money that they had to earn. And we need to honor that. We need to remember that these are people. When we would sell our conference, we'd put a board up of all the seats we'd have available. And when we sold a seat, we'd write that person's initials into the little section of what that seat would be. It wasn't an X. We weren't checking something off. That was a person sitting in that seat. That's something that we honor. And I feel like a lot of what we see in the coaching industry is the selling of a fantasy lifestyle of this infinite abundance and attracting this unbelievable wealth. And not that I don't want abundance, and not that I don't desire wealth, but I also know when enough is enough for me, and that's okay. It's okay not to be in this constant state of acquisition, of having a goal and then just moving the finish line before you ever reach the goal.
Yeah, needing more.
But
Because that
why?
was all, yeah, that was almost where I got, and it's from an inherent probably worthiness problem, probably
Mm,
just like sometimes relaxing is uncomfortable for me because, oh, what could I be doing? And
yep.
do more, more, more. And that's from society, that's from my upbringing. And the point that I kept raising with the ad agency was, but is this formula going to reach the woman that I know I can help?
Hmm.
And then they kept like going back.
We'll build a lookalike audience and we'll upload your
Yeah,
email
and
list.
again, it's also partly because I don't understand. That's not my role,
Mhm.
but if I can reach the woman that I know I can help, and I can help her, and I can help her relationship, and I can help their whole family, that's what it's about to me.
Mhm.
But the number and that kind of thing, and I think a part of the reason why this wasn't fitting or wasn't working was because the idea in and of itself came from more, like, how do I reach more women? Or Jordin, you're not doing enough, like, don't rest, there's women out there that need help and whatever, when really my want was to just like be satisfied and write another book, which is also going to make a massive difference.
Mhm.
So I got caught and was playing the game with myself. And I think I also, and I'm trying to do a better job of this, but be more transparent in my marketing and my messaging, and letting women know that I'm not doing this because I am perfect. I'm doing this because I struggled in this area
Mhm.
immensely and sometimes still do. So it that like yeah, the facade on social media or whatever with people, it is hard to tell what's true and what's just the image, the brand.
I think we see through it a lot more than we did before. I think for years we allowed ourselves to be fooled by it. I think we understand that they don't own this house. They're renting it. They don't own all these cars. These are leases that they could very well be in debt, that this is a curation. That is something that I find very frustrating as someone within this industry. Now, the good news comes with a prerequisite that there's going to be a lot of work for individuals who are trying to launch something or trying to communicate a message worth hearing to an audience. Our audience, our prospective clients, are more discernible, more selective, have shorter attention spans, and need to be nurtured more than ever before. They've been burned too many times. They are thrown too many offers. They are way too stressed out and overwhelmed by everyone vying for their attention and for their revenue. So the work we have to do, doesn't matter what you choose to sell, the work we have to do is to have a clear signal that delivers immense value. Now, I was on a podcast recently and they called me on the word value. They said that seems like one of those words that people say a lot but never define. So by delivering value, you are solving problems, specific problems. The more specific, the better. It's in the specificity. You are solving someone's problems. You are delivering them solutions before they've ever asked for something. And when you do that, and you do that consistently, and you do that with passion, you are going to be at the forefront of their mind when it comes to them wanting to make that decision of where to invest. Because by the time you reach them at first, they may not even realize that they need someone or that this is a problem. But by providing all this great content over time, we foster and we nurture relationships. This is not something that is scalable, and it should not be scalable. Relationships are not meant to be scalable. Relationships are meant to be finite, but they are meant to be mutually beneficial. And I think that's the phase that we are in here in 2023, and moving more in that direction. Is this is not about mass marketing. This is not about giant ad spends. This is about directly impacting the lives of these specific individuals that you know you're trying to reach.
And that's the crux of it. Simply put, well, if you boil it down, that's what we're all here to do. And then it gets so cloudy and we get so off that path. But if we came back to that, it'd be a heck of a lot easier as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, clearer for sure, because you can make better decisions about where to invest your time and where to spend your energy. But it's a lot of work, and it should be. We should invest to earn our clients. They should not just come to us just because of our experience or whatever it is. We should earn them, and we should keep earning them.
Before we wrap, one story, we were on vacation last winter, like January last year, and there was, this is super elitist, like you're at a Ritz Carlton, right? They have these like beach beds with the prime, like they're the front row, whatever, and then all the other chairs behind it, and you pay more for the nice bed thing that, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm calling it a bed, like a bed on the beach.
Mhm.
And there were people that didn't pay for the beds going and like doing a little photo shoot in them,
Mhm.
as if they like, so they were Instagramming like, oh, look at me, look at this vacation, right? I paid for the $500 a day
Mhm.
bed, but they didn't. And the only reason why I had a bed was because we were with my daughter, who was 1 at the time, and we needed the sun protection and space for her to nap and everything. Otherwise, I would have been baking in the sun with not enough sunscreen. But yeah, just how easy it is to create a false narrative. And that in and of itself it's sad. But I think if we do clearly communicate our value, define it, like you said, and continue to offer that, then our right clients are going to find us.
I also, to add to that, would urge, because when I hear that story, I was thinking about this over the past week. The thing about that I find frustrating is, yes, the person who did that, because they're creating a misperception of who they are and what they do and what they can afford and all that. But it's the person who worked really hard, bought that cabana, and wanted to celebrate it. And now they feel like they shouldn't, because now they feel like they're just going to show off. And now they feel like people might not believe them.
I didn't
And
even post about it. I didn't
mhm,
even post about it because I was just like, this is just gross now.
yeah, I bought a new car over the weekend, and I was thinking about it, that I wasn't going to say anything about it. Like, it was a practically brand new car, and I got it fully loaded, and it was this car I wanted for a long time. And I was encouraged, you should share this. I was like, why? No one wants to. No one gives a shit about that. And they're like, you bought this. You paid cash. You bought a full car for your family because you worked hard, because you made that money. You were able to do that for your family. I was like, you're right. If we are not celebrating our victories because we're afraid of being judged for them, we are robbing ourselves of the momentum that will propel us towards our next achievement. It is
I'm guilty.
important. Yeah. Oh, we all are.
I'm guilty.
Yeah, we all are. We need to celebrate our victories. And more importantly, we need to be there to celebrate others' victories as well.
And again, sometimes I'm like, is this for real? Is this a for real victory? Is it a
Mhm.
false Instagram victory? But I
But
also
but
love
you know your
celebrating.
audience, and you know who's genuine. You know
Yeah.
in your inner circle, when someone has something to share that you know is authentic and real, yeah, back them up. Be in
Yeah.
their corner. That's amazing.
We do brags on Friday, and we talked about
Mm,
brags at the beginning, but my group, and it's also from an area of where the reason we brag in a closed group with other women is because it does feel like it's hard to share your success. sometimes. It's hard to say how good it's going. So we practice that muscle to be able to say, like, I bought this car, I paid cash, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to be able to celebrate it. So
I love that. That's
get
amazing.
it. It's fun. It's so much fun. Well, James, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, insight.
Oh,
Everyone,
thanks for having me.
you need to get his magazine. Icon Fit comes out quarterly. You need
Mhm.
it for your coffee table or that's where I have my copies of them. They're like
Mm.
out. They're like decorations. Is that, I don't want it to be rude to say that. I'm like, what's
No,
a
no,
word
no,
I
no.
can say that doesn't
It
offend him?
is no, no offense at all. It is designed as a souvenir. I've worked in print media for 20 years, and the idea of a newsstand magazine that you quickly consume and then throw away, that's gone. It's not worth the paper. But to create something worth saving was the intention. It is a souvenir. It is a memorabilia that we're trying to create with every single volume of the magazine. And definitely look out for volume 5. There's going to be this absolutely amazing cover that I am beyond excited for.
Me too. Speaking of Beyond, James's podcast, Beyond the Image, you're going
Yep.
to want to check that one out. I will link that. Anything else where they can find you, what they should check out?
Oh, if they are interested, I released a annual planner
I
at the
like
start of the year.
planners.
And this was something I've been working on for 10 years myself, not with the intention of releasing it to the public. It's just what I did to make sure that I was setting the right vision and then building actions that supported that vision, from an annual to a quarterly to a monthly to a weekly to a daily breakdown. And last year, I decided I got tired of like working in an Excel document. So I made it into a PDF. And a couple of my clients saw it and they're like, oh, could we have a copy of that? Yeah, sure. So we printed up 20 of them and gave them out to my clients. And after a year of them having this, we decided, oh, well, let's get their feedback on this and let's refine it. Let's actually release it for anyone to have. So that's what we did. And it's called the Legacy Planner. It's available on Amazon. But if you go to jamespatrick.com/legacy, we just uploaded the PDF for free. And you could just download it and print out what you want from it. If you just want to print out the annual section or the quarterly sections, or if you just want to print out weekly sections to help yourself through the weeks, you can absolutely do that. And I upload for free because if we can put something out that helps people and gets them to focus and to create something that leaves a legacy, well, then that's pretty cool for us.
I'm getting off and ordering mine.
Ooh,
I
thank
need
you.
something to contain my I need some masculine structure to my business stuff and my planning. So it'll be perfect. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Do you notice the same repeat arguments and issues in your relationship? No matter which online communication formula you try, you are left feeling unseen, unsupported, and lonely at times. There is some common themes that I see when it comes to superwomen and communication. We can get a lot done. We are assertive with our communication at work, and it seems to do very well for us. But we struggle with intimate communication. So that can be with our partners in and out of the bedroom. It feels easier to do things yourself than ask. If you don't feel desired anymore in your relationship, like you've got a really good roommate or teammate, if you feel lonely, not seen, if you fear nagging, being needy or controlling, or the same issues are coming up on repeat, I bet that you are lacking feminine communication skills. Now, I'm hosting a workshop. It is only $47 for a 90-minute live training with me. It is on Thursday, March 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern. And you are going to learn my framework for communicating from the feminine. I've heard you roll your eyes. You heard it. I can feel it that you, just me saying that might make you want to puke, because it sounds like me telling you to not be authentically who you are, or be weak, or be vulnerable, or be needy. But it is these negative reactions that come up when I talk about communicating from the feminine. That is the reason why you exactly need to do this work. So stop having the same repeating arguments, feel supported, cared for, helped, and learn a framework to communicate your needs that is going to instantly start changing things for you and your relationship in and out of the bedroom. You're going to want to join me on March 23rd. Cannot wait to see you there, walk you through some exercises, and have you have some takeaways that are going to fundamentally shift the way you connect and communicate in your relationship. Have a great week, everybody. If you like what you heard in this episode, leave me a rating. Your support helps me get discovered by more women like you. Together, we can change the conversation around women's sexual health and pleasure for you, your partners, and generations to come.